In this episode of Cycling Tours, I will explore the cycling network within the southern sector of Yishun. What's up everybody, it's Transit Evolution, and I will be here today to review the cycling network in southern Yishun, starting and ending at Khatib MRT station. Because of the way the cycling network is laid out here, you can expect to see a little bit of overlap with the cycling paths and park connectors I covered in the videos for the northern and western sectors, but I will try my best to minimize it as much as possible. This video will mainly focus on neighborhoods 5, 6, 8, and 9. I will start my journey today passing the neighborhood center of neighborhood 8, which goes by the name of Khatib Central, located rather befittingly next to the MRT station. The neighborhood center is quite special in that, together with the town center of Bedok, is one of only two places in Singapore with pedestrian-only zones within their pedestrian plazas. This means that even cyclists pedaling on full manual power have to dismount and push within zones marked by red triangles. Fortunately, I'm not traveling through that today. Instead, I'm next to a future cycling path running along the east side of Yishun Avenue 2. You can see that work is currently in progress to create a new pavement, separated from the covered linkway by an open drain, which will provide a new cycling path running from Yishun Ring Road to Yishun Avenue 1. It's worth noting that this path was originally supposed to be completed in 2023, like the rest of the cycling network in Yishun, but I suppose there were some construction delays with the cycling network here. So I have to travel along a crumbling footpath on certain stretches until the cycling path is completed within the coming months. Passing Yishun Sports Centre and the estuary, I'm now moving along to Yishun Avenue 1. This is the arterial road running along the southeastern edge of Yishun, and the cycling path runs along the north side of this road throughout the entire length of the town. Lower Seletar Reservoir Park and its associated park connectors would lay further south. The route along this path is very rapid and direct, making it very conducive for travelling across the town. This segment up to Yishun Street 81 was built at a much earlier date than the cycling path further to the northeast, and you can see that a physically separated design is used, and a thick layer of vegetation separates the cycling path from the footpath. This makes the walking experience on the footpath a little too cramped for comfort, considering that it's fronting fences along a condominium. There's no way to smartly indicate to the traffic light that I would like to cross the road, even though there's a green light on the main carriageway without waiting for the next traffic cycle. Unfortunately, this will lead to some serious delays for those on the cycling path, unless you beat the red light. I have to wait for one whole traffic cycle after pressing the button to back to cross the road. This is unfortunately quite a common sight in Singapore, and I'll keep this video running at twice the real-time speed, so that you can feel how long it takes to wait for the lights in real life. Crossing Yishun Street 81, I'm now entering a newer cycling path. You'll notice that not many people would walk along Yishun Avenue 1, and that's obviously because this roadway is used mainly as a thoroughfare with non-active streetscapes, as I pass the fence of Orchid Park condo. Then, as I move on back to the public housing precinct at the southern corner of Neighbourhood 8, we get something that's slightly more interesting. This checkerboard pattern of public and private housing makes for a truly varied experience cycling here. I now leave Neighbourhood 8 and enter Neighbourhood 5, and you can sense a very distinct change in streetscape as the public housing of the 1980s makes way for those of the 2010s. There's a dearth of walking and cycling activity here, however, as the path is located along the edge of the town and is not going to be used as much by people trying to get between their homes and places with more activities in the centre. The uncovered drain to my left, which necessitates green fencing, doesn't help and results in fewer access points to Angsana and Olinda Breeze at Yishun. The smooth journey is interrupted by a crossing of the 4-lane Yishun Street 52, where I have to cross 3 separate carriageways, 2 zebra crossings across slip lanes, and the main roadway itself. This is quite a typical design in Singapore, which forces straight-going cyclists on the cycling path to slow down quite a bit when compared to those cycling on the road. That's especially so on a rainy day, where you could more easily slip and fall. I passed yet another decent bus stop bypass near Saraka Breeze at Yishun, and the cycling path makes a couple of kinks to work around a few staircases along the way. Not a problem at all. This is where I returned into the realm of private housing, passing Signature at Yishun and the Criterion. We'll briefly lose sight of the Signature red pin as some of the cycling paths in this town still aren't fully completed yet. At Yishun Street 41, it's time for me to make a left turn. You can continue the eastward journey on the video for the northern sector. Once again, due to the way the cycling network here is designed, I'll have to travel along some cycling paths, which I have previously covered in the video for the northern sector, like this one I'm along right now, and a short stretch of Yishun Ring Road and Avenue 11, which I will be covering shortly. I'll not speak over the video during this time so that you can get a feel of the ambience here, and we'll reconvene to cover a stretch of Khatib Bongsu Park Connector when I reach Yishun Central, at around the 11-minute mark of this video. This stretch of the Khatib Bongsu Park connector along Yishun Central is a little questionable. It was built a really long time ago, back in 2006, serving as what was probably the first semblance of cycling infrastructure in Yishun New Town. A stretch of it turned out as a footpath masquerading as a shared path, which is something that might have been lost in translation. When passing Yishun Park, the park connector was originally supposed to run through a hilly path to my left, far away from the roadway, not this narrow footpath. You can see how a cycling track appears once I pass this ramp. Even as I continue along this cycling track, this is not exactly a ride that will feel safe and comfortable and kind of feels force-fitted to provide some semblance of recreational connectivity for cyclists. Passing Yishun Pond, a large canal emerges and separates the park connector from Yishun Central, making good use of land reserve for the use of this drain. The path isn't very big, but the experience is slightly better than whatever I've encountered earlier. But when I pass Yishun Street 61, I'll have to make a little detour. This is the problem with using drainage reserves adjacent to roadways for the use of park connectors. You can have a right-of-way that can be easily used for a recreational path, but whenever you meet a roadway, the journey becomes a little elaborately indirect. Passing Yishun Central Meadows, I have to suddenly make a crossing to the other side of the canal as I approach the intersection with Yishun Avenue 2. The future precinct of Yishun Beacon sits on the other side of Yishun Central. I'll continue along the stretch of the Khatib Bongsu Park connector beneath the North-South Line MRT tracks, which I have previously covered in the video for the western sector of Yishun. I'll reconvene to discuss the new cycling paths in Yishun South once I reach Yishun Ring Road at around the 16-minute mark of this video. Actually, let's talk about Yishun in general as we wait to cross this intersection. Yishun is traditionally a rather walkable town with a sort of charm to it, and it is evidenced by the amount of pedestrian activity and street life along the roads and streets in the town. That's especially so today in this video, which was taken on a Hari Raya Puasa afternoon. You see how there are plenty of pedestrians along this shared path connecting to Khatib MRT station. This makes things tricky for cyclists. You see, path sharing works well when pedestrian and cyclist volumes are low. When at least one of these groups of road users is high in volume, dedicated paths of custom larger widths will provide a better and safer experience for all, so that they can travel comfortably at their different natural speeds. In this case though, the pedestrian volumes are high, while the cyclist volumes are low. This means that bikers will have to gingerly make their way around the walkers. This makes for a cycling experience that's not ideal. The good thing is that there's also a cycling path along the north side of Yishun Ring Road, so I would recommend cyclists travelling along this roadway to use that instead. But what if the cyclist volumes are higher? We'll see an example of that in action later in the video. In the meantime, I'm travelling along the eastern cycling path of Yishun Avenue 4, providing a direct cycling connection between residents of Neighbourhood 5 with Vistara Mall, a tiny shopping mall which is supposed to meet the needs of the entirety of Neighbourhood 6. Having bi-directional cycling paths along both sides of a primary access road like this sure does go a long way in making active mobility journeys direct in this town. 507 Yishun Avenue 4, a commercial block in Angsana Breeze at Yishun, would not have been easily accessible by bike if this newer cycling path had not been built. Think about the implications of that for residents in Neighbourhood 5. Many will have to rely on less convenient modes of travel just to get to a kopitiam corner. I'll deal with the other side of Yishun Avenue 4 shortly, but first let's have a look at the cycling path along Yishun Street 81, right at the heart of Neighbourhood 8. The cycling path runs opposite of Orchid Park Secondary, but then switches to the north side of the street. The journey is a bit discontinuous as I pass access routes which are rarely opened, before becoming smoother as I pass Khatib Evergreen. I do feel that there's a missed opportunity here to provide a cycling link between 848A and 850 Yishun Street 81 though, which will enable a more direct way to access Khatib MRT station from this street, making cycling trips faster. Pedestrian volumes are low here, so this will quite easily alleviate the congestion in the shared path just 150 meters to the north. Pardon me as I pass some construction work that is ongoing on the Yishun South CC after passing the back gate to Khatib Central. In the meantime, I guess it's worth noting that the cycling path here actually dates back to 2015 and was originally built under contract RP228F, which was awarded in 2013. In 2018, contract PR188 was awarded to update the existing cycling paths to a more contrastive red design and to complete the extensive cycling network that Yishun is now known for, which was done under two phases in 2021 and 2023. Unfortunately, I suppose works have gone slightly behind schedule, as evidenced by the path we saw earlier along Yishun Avenue 2. Other telltale signs of works that are still in progress can be found elsewhere in this town. I do want to point out that Yishun South is one of the first estates to have dementia-friendly features, ones which were first announced in 2019. This was done by zoning blocks with the use of bright primary colors like red, green, and blue on their facades. Large block numbers are also painted on housing blocks, together with distinctive icons and murals, and you can clearly see them as I travel around the neighborhood. Meanwhile though, I'm now travelling along the western cycling path of Yishun Avenue 4. Passing Orchid Park Secondary and Naval Base Primary once again, two wide paths branch off from each other, perhaps waiting to be updated to the new design under the contract I mentioned earlier. But if the stay on track signs were a clue, the path closer to the school fence used to be a cycling path. I suppose that when the grey paths are redesignated in red, the path I'm travelling along right now will be the new cycling path. For now though, it doesn't matter, though I will have to make a awkward bypass behind the bus stop. Crossing Yishun Ring Road, I pass a neighbourhood park by the name of Yishun Green Link, an axis for pedestrian movement between this intersection and Yishun Central. Unlike the one in Tampines West though, this one is not easily rideable on a bike, and you are better off using the roadside cycling path along Yishun Avenue 4. I've just passed Northland Primary School, and Safra Yishun Country Club is coming up right ahead to my right. This street is lined with blocks that have commercial shops on their ground floor, such as in the case of 654 Yishun Avenue 4, which goes a little way into injecting liveliness into the street. I shall now move on to Yishun Central 2, where there's a cycling path fronting the future Yishun Beacon precinct. The network skirts away from the hospital complex that we have in this town, with Yishun Community Hospital and the acute Kutek Tuak Hospital to my right, as part of an integrated development that was completed in 2010, making it the first hospital in the northern region of Singapore. I shall now move along to Yishun Central 1, where a shared path exists, wrapping around the town centre of Yishun, also known as Neighbourhood 9. The housing blocks here are built quite late into the town's development, dating to 1991, nearly a decade after the first residents of this new town moved in. For that reason, the blocks here seems pretty architecturally refined, with detailed textures along its facades, when compared to the older ones built in the years prior. One thing to keep a lookout for when cycling along access roads like this is right-turning vehicles from the opposite side. The automobile is king, and I have to give way to them. As I make this left turn, I pass the husk of what used to be the Yishun Temporary Bus Interchange, which was in operation between 2015 and 2019. It replaced a previous bus interchange and was since replaced by the Yishun Integrated Transport Hub, built right into the south wing of North Point City. North Point City has a pretty interesting history. Its northern wing opened in 1992 as North Point Shopping Centre, just a year after the town centre, as the first shopping mall in Singapore built within a far-flung new town. The southern wing was opened in 2017 on land that was previously occupied by a bus interchange and houses a community club, Yishun Public Library, and the town plaza, while having the North Park Residences condominium atop. The cycling and shared paths here are way too narrow though, overloaded by illegally parked pedal and motorbikes, and the traffic created by the sheer volume of delivery riders emanating from the largest shopping mall in northern Singapore. Earlier, I mentioned that path sharing doesn't work when pedestrian volumes are high. It's now time to find out what happens when the volume of active mobility devices is high. This is where things get terrifying for pedestrians. Well, I guess we'll have active mobility users speeding through the path, blasting their music and blaring their horns. There seems to be an implicit agreement between users to speed here, to avoid hogging the way of, say, delivery riders, who are incentivized to rush because time is money. After all, it's a shared path, and the lane width is really wide. But this is very dangerous. When this happens within a shared path where pedestrian-cyclist conflicts are maximized, an accident is bound to happen, and it is for this reason that a physically separated cycling path is more desirable. I'm now heading back to the stretch of Yishun Park Connector next to the MRT station. Once again, this has been covered in the video for the western sector, and I'll return to the cycling paths at around the 32.5-minute mark. I will be returning to the cycling path network along Yishun Central 1 here. The most direct crossing to the shared path across the road has stairs, but not to worry, I'll just make this slight detour, which will result in a barrier-free ride across the traffic intersection to a shared path that closes the loop I've made around the town centre. We are now approaching the tail end of this video as I turn onto a shared path along Yishun Street 51. This one mainly serves Palm Breeze and Arcadia Breeze at Yishun, with a park and a plot of vacant land in between. I suppose a shared path is used here because it is difficult to create a path with a bigger width due to the prescient driveways to my left and the trees to my right. And it's not like the cycling path leads anywhere, so pedestrian and cyclist volumes here are low, which makes such a path acceptable given the space constraints. Well, actually no. When you see the traffic volumes on the 4-lane street to my right, I think you will agree that 1 lane of road space could be easily reclaimed from the carriageway for a proper physically separated cycling path. Although there are no bus stops along this street, there seems to be quite a bit of people walking around towards the northeastern end of it, perhaps due to the presence of a food court at 504 Yishun Street 51, serving this vicinity. I am now down to my last cycling path along the northern side of Yishun Ring Road, where I continue off from what was covered in the videos for the northern and western sectors. This path provides the most direct cycling connection between much of southern Yishun with Khatib MRT station, and being the trunk route for cycling, it must be designed right. So is it? Of course, I will always like the foot and cycling path to be larger and physically separated, and that isn't done here. But aside from that, I think it performs pretty well under dinner crowds, as I pass Wisteria Mall. There seem to be quite a few bikes by delivery riders parked on the cycling path here, despite the presence of bicycle parking to my right. Perhaps a more convenient holding place, like a bicycle yellow box, could be built on the planting verge to my left, which will allow for more convenient temporary parking. As I pass Yishun Avenue 4, I think it's now an appropriate time to give a summary of how I found the cycling network of Yishun. Aside from the narrow park connector, I generally don't have much to complain about regarding the cycling paths here. They do function pretty well as a cycling network, and in turn, a strong active mobility culture has been inculcated into Yishun, which is quite unlike any other place in Singapore. I'm not just talking about delivery riders, of course. Along the way, you do see entire families cycling together on the network here, which is healthy. And you sometimes see an entire family on a personal mobility aid, which is not so healthy. But it goes to show that the residents here do trust the network in bringing them wherever they want to go within Yishun. It exists and it is genuinely usable, which is something which cannot be said for some of the older cycling towns out there. This goes to show that the network is largely comfortable and direct. However, it doesn't feel safe at times. It seems like the network isn't quite designed with capacity in mind and becomes dangerously overcrowded on shared paths with riders at high speeds near Yishun and Khatib MRT station, and to a lesser extent, the neighbourhood centres as well. Perhaps bicycle traffic measurements should be done here to determine if the infrastructure requires an upgrade, and we will also find out in the process if a solid cycling network does tilt the modal share of travel in a town towards favouring active mobility. As I make a beeline to Khatib MRT station, we come towards the end of yet another cycling tours episode. What do you think about the cycling network of Yishun? Do you find the active mobility culture in Yishun to be unique and special? How so? Let me know in the comment section below. Feel free to use the super thanks function of YouTube if you can, and subscribe and tap the notification bell if you have not done so to be notified of future videos. Until we meet again, this is Transit Evolution signing off.